All right, today's show is brought to you by Coffee Cola. On a hot day like today, I look for other alternatives to coffee. Coffee Cola is a carbonated beverage infused with coffee. Whether you're on the go or with friends, it easily mixes with your favorite liquors, whiskey, bourbon, whatever you need. CoffeeColaCanada.com. You get some for yourself. And I got Scott Page on the show today, and it's called Meet Me for Coffee. Are you ready to meet me for coffee, Scott?
Buddy, I'm ready to meet you for coffee. And hey, I've never seen that stuff before. That looks great. I'm a coffee lover. I got to try that.
You know what? Hopefully, Benil is listening to this because I did some research on it. It's from Russia originally,
Wow.
And I am a coffee lover. And I have also do a bit of outdoor work sometimes. And on a hot day like today, you don't want to sweat, man. Like you want something refreshing. And this is actually pretty good. It's infused tonic water with the perfect amount of coffee tinge to it. So I like the mocha taste and everything. So it's amazing. It's really going to catch on. I really do believe so. So yeah. So hopefully he can send you a box of that.
Oh, please. Yeah. Because I love the idea. I love carbonated drinks. I love coffee. That combination I've never heard before. Awesome. I can't wait to check that out, actually.
Awesome. Yeah. CoffeeColaCanada.com for anyone else looking to get some. It's an awesome drink. Really refreshing. I enjoy it in the morning sometimes. You know, I'm a coffee guy. I'm a coffee 24/7 guy. And that's why we made this show, because Meeting for Coffee is the best place and best time to get conversations and stories that we have never heard before out in the open. So Scott, let's talk about your father, Bill Page. He played with the Lawrence Welk Band as part of his, it was like a variety show, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Lawrence Welk was one of the early television shows back in the day when there was only 7 stations. You know, it was 2, 4, 5, 7, 11, and 13. That was it. So it was one of the very early, started out in black and white, then went to color later on. It was an early time. My dad was in that band for 15 years. So I grew up on the Lawrence Welk show. I grew up around television, and that's when those cameras were giant. You know, there were those big giant cameras they pushed around. Now it's all these little things that, you know, it's crazy. But yeah, it was a very interesting time. My dad was, like I said, was with the band for 15 years. Before that, you know, he was with Judy Garland. He did, he played with a lot of the big bands through the years. And then he went to NBC Staff Orchestra, and he worked at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion here in Los Angeles doing the light opera season. He was a real seasoned musician that played, 14 different instruments. So he was a woodwind player. He was called a doubler because he doubled on, all the saxophones, flutes, clarinets, but also played oboe, English horn, and bassoon. And that was where I kind of got myself started in music. And at that time, I was a kid. I was a trumpet player, and I played on the show. And I can actually say one of my biggest claim to fame, and I brought this up a few times. I'm the only guy on the planet that has played in Lawrence Welk and in Pink Floyd. So it's a very interesting combo. If people that knew Lawrence Welk show, I'm sure your mom and some of those folks would know. That's a pretty big hit. 7 billion people, and it's just me.
You're the only guy I know who played in the Lawrence Welk Band and Pink Floyd, so it all works out.
It's so funny.
Let's talk about beginning times for you.
Right.
Learning to play. You're multi-talented. You play rhythm guitar. You played in Pink Floyd rhythm guitar as well, right?
Yeah, besides saxophone. Yep.
Yeah. Like, how do you? I've always wanted to play the saxophone. Was the saxophone your first instrument?
No, I actually started out as a trumpet player, and I played trumpet through school. I wasn't really interested in being a musician. I did it mainly because my dad would always say, it's good to he wanted me to have music. And he said, play, you can, play some gigs on the weekend instead of working in a gas station and make some extra money. You could play. And it's, something just kind of good for the soul. It wasn't until I was in high school that I was a trumpet player. I wasn't really very good, and I played in all the bands in the marching band. You just always get teased being in the marching band with all my surfer buddies. But I started being I was studying to be an architect, and I was a draftsman, and I was working for a company called Audiodyne Corporation right out of high school going into college. And then I ended up getting in a band with Jeff Beccaro and David Page, who were the original founders of Toto back in the day. And we had a kid band called the Merciful Soul Band, and it was really like a blood, sweat, and tears Chicago style band, and had 4 horns, like I said, I was the worst guy in the band. But we'd play those gigs, and the band was so good with Jeff in them because they were great as kids, they were monster. Jeff was killing it. We started winning all these Battle of the Bands, and then I started realizing I'd be going to work every day, drinking nothing but coffee. That's where I trained myself on coffee, drinking coffee all day. And then when I played the gigs, I'd go to the gigs, and the front row was filled with a lot of girls. So I said, you know what? I think this music business part is much more fun. So I decided at that moment to become a musician. I stopped my learning my drafting skills and doing all that, and I moved on to just becoming studying like crazy. Through that period of time, I was still playing trumpet for a while, and then I got into a band with a gentleman by the name of Stan Worth. And Stan was people know him. He was the guy that wrote George of the Jungle and Super Chicken, those theme songs, and he was an incredible musician. He brought me into his band. I was not really that good, but he liked me, and he sort of made me a little protege to kind of study with him. And I basically carried all the equipment, had the truck, did all the work, and he let me play. And I got into it. And then he said, dude, you got to take up the saxophone. Can you do that? So I went and bought a saxophone, started practicing that, started playing it on the gig, fell in love with the saxophone, then just did, 24/7 playing saxophone for years. Right. And that was my whole start.
The rest is history.
History.
I consider it history. Anything that has to do with Supertramp, Pink Floyd. I see you jamming with Stephen Perkins during this new project you have. Think Floyd.
One of my favorite drummers on the entire planet.
Mine too.
God, that guy is so smoking, man. It's about the feel. He has such an incredible feel. He brings so much excitement to the bandstands, because when Stephen plays, it is so real. I mean, there's a difference. There's a lot of guys that have great chops and that can play, but Stephen brings just lifts the band up, because there's just so much love in his playing, and his time is so, it's not so much that his time is like perfect, like a metronome, but he feels great. Right. And that's why he's so great on the real personality behind me. Yeah, I love playing with Stephen.
I told him that as well, that he's got some feel in his play. But I also looked back on your discography, and you played on the Strays record for them, right? Is that where you guys met, you and Stephen?
I played on Jane's Addiction record.
Yes.
I actually did not meet him there. I went in, I did that session with Perry Farrell and Dave. And I put some horns on a tune there. Actually, my business partner was a gentleman by the name of Bob Ezrin, who was producing that Jane's Addiction album. He also produced the Wall, the Pink Floyd records and stuff. And we became partners, and we started a company together called Seventh Level, which we took public later. But anyway, Bob called me in to come put a solo on, not a solo, but put some horn parts on the Jane's Addiction album. Yeah.
Any new projects happening right now or in the works? I know everybody's stuck at home.
Oh yeah, I mean, listen. Personally, I am been a serial entrepreneur. Like my dad, I learned from my father. We had donut businesses, boat businesses, lighting businesses, candy businesses. My dad was one of the inventors of the wah-wah pedal, believe it or not, and that's famous recording studio, Sound City. I don't know if you know, there's a documentary on that. The Dave Grohl bought the thing. That was my dad's studio. So grew up in all this stuff, entrepreneurship. And so I've always been an entrepreneur. And I'm actually on my fourth startup now, which has been, was lucky to take one of them public, which was Seventh Level, that I did with Bob Ezrin. And then I've done a series of other companies. And my new one is called Think Experience. And it's an immersive entertainment company, because the model has shifted so much right now that you can't sell music anymore. There's no way to sell music anymore as an artist. I mean, you can maybe get some streams, but it's very difficult to make any money in the streaming business unless you've got a label behind you, get you on those playlists. 1 million streams will get you roughly $5,000. Well, there's only 2 to 3% of the entire Spotify catalog that gets 1 million streams. So there's only the top tier really making money there. So I realized that, and I thought, well, as an entrepreneur, where can you make money? It's really combining technology and what's going on in entertainment today. So I started Think, and we're experimenting using technology, because it's all about the experience. The two things you can sell as an artist today really is the experience and the lifestyle, your lifestyle, and sort of the relationship. So I've really been focused on taking, the sort of the things I've learned through business and taking this new business and looking for opportunities in the experience space. And we just finished with Perkins and myself. We did 40 sold out shows in a 360-degree immersive visual dome. And it is the trippiest experience you've ever seen. And think experience is a couple things. It's about making you think when you go in these and creating the experience. And this first think experience was a Think Floyd experience. So we were doing Pink Floyd with an all-star band with Stephen Perkins, Tony Franklin from The Firm, Norwood Fisher from Fishbone, Kenny Olds from Kid Rock's band, and Roberta Friedman, who was on Floyd with me. And we've kind of been doing this crazy immersive show, and we're starting to experiment with all kinds of technology. So Think is really, since I have a technology background, because all the companies I've been doing have been technology companies over the past 15, 17, 18, 20 years, 20 something years have been tech companies. Geez, I can't even believe how much time's gone by. So it's really about figuring out how technology plays into this. So we're basically working on the technology stack for an immersive live show, but that's also tied to the online audience management platform that ties into a subscription product business that we're building out. So we're really kind of developing new ways to create experiences. And especially now, I have to say, I mean, this is crazy times and everybody's pummeling. And personally, we lost everything this year. We had gigs. We were supposed to be playing Jazz Fest this year. We had tours lining up for Europe. We were working on this 1,600 seat immersive dome theater we were going to put up. All these things happened when this COVID thing hit and all this stuff. It just killed it. Done. Over. But you know what I have to say? Those are all things in the future. I don't know what would have happened if I would have done them. I mean, I could have fell down and hit my head and been over. So I completely don't care about that. And personally, right now, I'm so excited about the opportunities that are coming up. I think this is going to be the heyday for entrepreneurs. There's so many problems to solve, and especially in the music and entertainment space, there's incredible opportunities. So I'm thrilled. I'm working on new business models, revamping those around our experience-based stuff with some new ideas about how to do live shows tied to streaming and a few other little special goodies that I'll be bringing out pretty soon once we get into talking about all that stuff.
I'll be the first one on a flight down to see this because I'm a big Pink Floyd fan. What other tributes are you guys planning on doing, or is it just Pink Floyd for now?
No, actually, our whole model, the business model is based around experiences because we can think everything from education. I can think education. I can think blockchain. I can think entertainment. But I really believe the concept of mashing known things that people know and putting your own spin on them. So we're not just taking these things and doing them exactly like the records, like a tribute band. We're trying to say, how can we take these known things and mash them together? If you think about our company, Think Experience, it's really a combination of Cirque du Soleil meets TED Talks meets Burning Man. So it's really kind of creating a whole experience, and we're doing that. And we're working on a variety of other options to mash together. I'm kind of holding out on a couple things. I don't really want to announce them just yet because I'm very excited. But we're taking great classics, mashing them with incredible storytelling, and tying that also with innovations of new electronica, and mashing it all together to create a new experience that's storytelling that also makes people think when they listen to it. So that's kind of the space we're going into. But we're working on a bunch of things in that space.
First off, how'd you think of this idea? Where did it all start?
It really comes down to, I can honestly say I feel like I'm very close to the market because I'm a technologist and I follow technology so closely because every 90 days it's changing. And, I realized that, a few years ago that, it's really about artists have to really start thinking like entrepreneurs. Right. You have to start thinking different. So I developed actually a program called SPACE, which stands for Story, Plan, Army, Conversion, Education. So the whole idea is it's a workflow. It's a business process to teach artists how to think like entrepreneurs and build a business. And it's around lean startup principles and things that we use like in Silicon Valley, building businesses, the lean canvas, a one-page business plan, and all those types of business tools on how we do it. Because this is the greatest time in history for the independent artist. I have this thing that I'm talking to you right now is a worldwide broadcast network. I can I can find audience because whoever owns the audience wins. That's just the game. The cool part is you don't need a lot of audience. Going back to the what Kevin Kelly from Wired Magazine coined about 10, 12 years ago, 15 maybe now, was called the 1,000 true fans. True fan is somebody spend $100 a year. If I have 1,000 of those fans, it's my first $100,000 in revenue. So I teach everybody to go small, figure out how to get 1,000 people in a repeatable process, and then scale from there. So from that, my mind is always thinking about where are the opportunities, and thinking about this. And especially when you look at what's going on right now with this COVID, we know right out of the gate, people aren't going to be just showing up in groves in clubs and stuff anymore. They're going to have all this social distancing and new ways of things. But one of the key ingredients is we now have this live streaming. But what people forget is this live streaming is two-way. It's not just a one-way stream anymore. I can have a whole bunch of people on a big screen, which I'm doing right now. We're building our live show with us, all this secret things that we're kind of working on. But I got screens around the band and people are actually looking. We're watching them, they're watching us. And I can reach up and go, hey, Bob, what do you want to hear, buddy? And then that guy from over can actually have the conversation. So bringing two-way into it and all these technologies. So the making me think about it is just when you're forced into a situation where things can't be the way they are, you start to look for the opportunity. And I'm a firm believer inside of chaos is where all the opportunities come. So while everybody else is out all freaking out, what are we going to do? How am I going to do this? I'm just like, oh, this is awesome, because while the confusion is there, I'm out trying to figure out how to do this. And I've been really focused in on the online space for a while. I had a company called Ignited Networks where we built mobile messaging networks, media, those types of things. So I'm really combining all the things that we know are working right now. We know there's a whole bunch of data that shows that people are going to be cocooning more. It's really about building a hive now. The business models are around hives. I say if you want to survive, you have to build a hive, because that's really bringing those super fans together and creating your business. One of the things I've also learned, I'm a big data guy, I follow data very closely, that we now know that roughly 60% of the revenue for artists and entertainers will come from 2 to 3% of your audience, the super fan base. That's where it's at. So my thinking with all this is like, how do I service the super fan? How do I build a relationship? And then how do I extend those experiences, even if I'm doing it small people live, certain people online, and then there's other things that we can also do, like delivery service. I can now deliver an experience that can go along with my live experience, right? So that's the model I'm looking at, because I can see people having parties at home where they feel like they're with trusted sources and they're able to actually begin to have fun with their friends. And if I can deliver an experience that's tied to my live thing, that people can come over, we can all interact, it really extends the live experience into a home experience that can be globally. I also believe that there's a massive opportunity in going hyper-local around businesses that are in town where live events and things can actually happen, but I can use the delivery services to deliver food, special drinks, sponsored boxes, things like that, so that I can say, I got a cool event coming up this tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. You can order your box, bring it over, invite your fans over, and here you got this thing that's going to help make the experience even better. So those are the models that I'm working on right now with Think.
It's incredible. You know what? Kudos to you for thinking about the future of the music business, the future of the experience of the fan. Obviously everyone in every entertainment industry wants to entertain their fans somehow or get them captivated, build a hive around their business. Even this podcast, right? You start small, keep going and going and going. Same with a band. A lot of bands after this, I know, especially mine, because we're not really going anymore, but we probably freaking out because now we hit a dead stop. We can't play shows. We can't get spins. Where is this industry going? Besides the Think experience, where do you see this in 10 years?
Oh, well, that's kind of hard to say. Again, I don't know if all this social distancing is going to change, but what I do see is it's going to be based on experiences. We know from doing our dome shows, we were able to sell 40 shows out. I also know there's new technologies, like one of the companies we're working on AR and VR, right? Obviously those technologies, I think VR has now had a shot in the arm because we're forced people to stay home. I mean, just look at all these, just talk about the Zoom calls, and people are like hanging out with their friends on their FaceTime. What I think is interesting is so many people now are going, wow, the experience is pretty cool. I'm cooking, or I'm washing, watering the yard, and I've got 4 of my pals on there, and they're doing their stuff. One guy's washing the car. We're hanging out in this virtual space. Well, now with VR, we're seeing a whole push into that direction, where now you can actually experience it in a world, talk to people. Things are starting to open up. So I see a massive shift in that home experience. I think we're going to cocoon. I think we're going to see more of that going on. This COVID thing that's happened and what's gone on is completely, from my point of view, has said the Jetsons, go. This has completely changed all the user behavior. You're seeing companies like Twitter and Facebook saying, don't come back into the office, work from home, because we now have the ability to connect. Because the 3 main drivers that have happened that changed everything is bandwidth, storage, and horsepower. This cell phone that I'm on right now, this iPhone, is like, forget about it. When I was doing my first technology, I was really early on in the multimedia day. One of my favorite things that I was part of, and my favorite claim to fame, is I directed and produced the world's first interactive cartoon with another fellow and a company, and we basically launched the whole business around that. And it's like all this new technology is now moving into the home. It's in the palm of our hand. I can broadcast anywhere. I can build audience. I don't need anybody else anymore. I don't need a label. I don't need anybody. All I have to do is create value for customers. And if you're an artist out there, the key is if you can't sell music, what can you sell? You have to think that through. What experience, what products, what things can you bring to the party? We were experimenting with all these new technologies. We had interactive clothing that had chips built into them. So you could walk up with your cell phone, boom, create an experience. And that experience changes all the time. So the next day I can pick up my clothes and tap my phone, and new stuff can happen, right? So there's all kinds of new ways. There's a company, a venture capitalist friend of mine, that after he came see our Dome show, he said, dude, you can't believe it. We just put $10 million into a company that when you put their shoes, when you put them on, they turn you into a speaker. And he says, once you listen to music like this, you will never listen to music again. Now, I haven't heard him yet, but it's really about bringing all these new tech experiences and things together. So I'm out looking and working with major manufacturers of new stuff to mash these experiences and things together. And, AR, VR, and all artists, you have to look at what's going on in technology. You have to become educated and get up every day and go to work. And part of going to work is following thought leaders, studying, learning how to use social media for business, not just as this, how to use Twitter for business, how to use Facebook, how to get convert on Facebook ads. They got to learn growth hacking. All these things are important. They don't necessarily have to do it all, but what they have to do is they have to know what it is and who to call. That's the point. So I try to teach artists, you got to get educated. If you're serious about building a business, this is the greatest time, because again, 1,000 true fans, somebody will spend $100 on whatever you sell over a year. That's your first $100,000 in revenue. Go small, figure that out, build a repeatable process, then scale it. It's very simple. It's work, but I really suggest people going local, especially a local artist, because there I can walk into a store, I can go cut a deal with the restaurants trying to figure out how they can make any money. Hey, well, let's move your restaurant out into the parking lot. We'll put a band outside and we'll stream that. And then all the people at home, we can deliver stuff to them. We can ship them food and all kinds of things. So there's just new ways to partner up with other entrepreneurs. I always believe in partnering, and I think that's a really important thing.
I think you pretty much stretched it out to a point where people will actually understand it the first time. That was really well said. I want to get back to your career. 1983.
Okay, yeah.
Supertramp.
Unbelievable.
Last Words tour. Must have been an amazing tour, although Roger Hodgson was leaving the band at that point.
Yep.
1984, I saw that you were part of his solo record, India the Storm, Hooked on a Problem. How was it recording with Roger?
Oh, Roger's, first of all, Roger's a great guy, really nice, very, he's a very kind of, I would say, very spiritual guy. He's, he loves nature. He's very easy to get along with. And, going with Roger was great. I mean, it was so simple in the studio. He actually directed very well and gave me good input. And, I put parts on his record. Supertramp for me was a great family. That tour, that 83 tour was fantastic. It was with all the band. And that was probably I guess the 83 or 80, well, I guess it was 83 tour. Yeah. Was it 80, 83, 8? Yeah. I can't remember. Anyway, because I did 3 albums with them and I did multiple tours. That was an incredible tour because that was first time of really major stadium style tours, because Supertramp in the United States is big, but in Europe they're huge.
Awesome.
Like stadium things. We did 80,000 outdoor, see people out at this place Parc de Sceaux. But that was such a family organization. John Helliwell, the saxophone player in that band, is truly one of my biggest mentors. I loved him to death. He taught me so much about life, because this guy loves things. I mean, but he doesn't love, he always had beautiful Italian clothes and, he had beautiful sports cars, but he didn't have them because he was trying to, wow, this is cool to have. He had them because he loved them so much. And I used to see him over there. When he'd take a bite of food, you could see his eyes go blank. He was tasting every bite of food. He was a collector of I used to love this, collector of, what do you call those? The little knives. What is it? The famous knife.
Swiss Army knife?
Swiss Army knives. And he collected them from all over the world because they're all different colors and all this stuff. And I'd look over, he just went and found a new one. And I'd see him over in the corner and he'd be there like looking at this thing like for 10 minutes, just savoring everything. So he was the one that started making me realize, in order to do that, you have to be present. You can't have your mind running around in a million places, tasting food where you taste it. So he gave me insights that really was very important. Not only a monster player and one of the sweetest people on the planet, but just an incredible, he taught me the importance of really caring about things at a level that I've never seen anybody in my life presented to me. Amazing, amazing guy. I love that tour. That was so much fun.
And you were also busy with Toto at that time too. In 1985, you toured with them in promotion of the Isolation album, which you've already established you had a friendship with some of the dudes in Toto before. So how'd that all happen? You were such a busy guy.
So here's the thing. Why that gig to me was truly one of the most important gigs I've ever had. When we were playing in the Kid band and we were doing our Merciful Soul thing, Jeff started becoming an incredible drummer. He started doing the Sonny and Cher show at 16 years old. And then those guys all went off and they did the Boz Scaggs albums and they did all this stuff. And in the back of my mind, I wasn't very good. Because I really didn't get seriously playing until I got into college. So these guys were already really rocking. And so always in the back of my mind, that was a driving force for me because I saw them explode in the business. So when I was practicing like crazy, and then when I got the call to come in and play with the band, that was one of the most exciting moments and probably one of the most frightening moments of my life. I remember when they called me for this, I would shed like 10 hours a day on the music, man. I was so scared to go in there and play because the stories are, Jeff he wouldn't put up with anything. Right. If it wasn't happening, man, he let everybody know. Right. He wouldn't put up with any crap. So I was so scared going into that first day rehearsal. I didn't sleep all night because I thought, what if I go in there and I fall down? Right. I fall down in front of my friends after finally calling me to do this because I did Supertramp and I played with Fleetwood's band. There was a variety of things I'd done. So I kind of moved my stature up and I thought, oh my God, I get to go play. I'm getting in the game. I'm really getting in the game now because at that time, Toto they were the musicians, right? They were doing all the records. They were on everybody's records and they had, 6 Grammys for their one record. So they were serious at that time. So to get that call, and I'll never forget, I went in that day. I was so scared to death. And before we did anything, the first thing that Jeff did is he handed me the cowbell and they counted off a tune. and wanted me to play cowbell. Now, time is, the groove, according to Jeff, the groove is a very delicate thing. It's not just hitting the thing, right? I mean, there's a place where you set that tempo. I mean, it's a lifetime to just go. I mean, to really lock in where it feels and you're kind of right in the groove and you can get it to happen. So luckily, I was a fanatic with metronomes. I ate, drank, sleep, lived with a metronome because it was so important to me to learn good time, because time is everything. It helps you hit a better golf ball, hit a tennis ball, make love to your wife, whatever. I mean, time is a very important thing, right? It's so important. And so I went into that session, they hand me the cowbell, now I'm sweating, right? And they count off the tube and I'm playing the cowbell. And afterwards, Jeff went, he came over and put his arm around me. And that was sort of the first kind of inkling of getting in. And that was the place I got in. And people always ask me, they say, what was the best thing about playing with Toto? I said, dude, I got to play cowbell with Jeff Porcaro on 4 songs. It wasn't the solos I had or the parts I played. It was picking up that cowbell because I was such a student of the groove. He was a monstrous groove. So it was such an honor to be somebody that understood the beat like he did, right? And I remember I'd be here and my riser was up here and he was just a little bit below me right over here. And we go into those tunes and I'd stare him, look in his eyes, and we just lock in like crazy on that cowbell. And honest to God, it's when that groove gets to that point, when you're playing with things, it's better than sax. It's like crazy. It's like you go to a different place. You go to a no mind space. You're just like in there and it just dances. It's an amazing thing. So for me, Toto, the best thing was getting to play 4 cowbell on 4 songs with Jeff Porcaro. Love that guy. I miss him so much. I mean, he was my mentor. You know, it was great. We had 2 buses in the band, and the 2 buses, there was the A bus and the B bus, and Jeff, myself, Lenny Castro, the percussion, and Lenny's wife, who was one of the singers, Paulette, we were in the B bus. And it was like going to school every day to talk to Jeff, because by that time, he had already played on just monstrous amounts of records and dates and, legendary drummer at that time. So that was an incredible time for me.
Well, even Lenny Castro to be on the same bus as that guy, like, unreal.
Well, Lenny's monstrous. I mean, he had talked about it, and that's what was so beautiful is imagine being in the rhythm section with Lenny, Jeff Porcaro, and his brother Mike playing bass. I mean, this thing was like that rhythm section, and then Lukather, of course. I mean, that rhythm section is so strong and grooves so hard. It was like, it was heaven every night. I mean, I enjoyed I was incredible grooves in that band. Incredible players.
There was a band that the children of Jeff Porcaro and Lukather started with the drummer from One Direction. I had him on my show earlier last year.
Trevor, yeah, all those guys, yeah.
They're called ZFG. Awesome band. And you know what? They got feel. It goes back to that feel.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, I'm so proud of Trev because he was a little guy when I was playing. He was born right at that period of time, right? And so it's so rewarding to see him growing up in his dad's footsteps, and he's playing great. And you can definitely see the influence. Pop handed him the influence right now, but it's a great band. More important, he's a wonderful kid. Right now he's becoming a man. For me, he's a kid. He's just a beautiful person. And like Lukather, I love Lukather. He's a prankster, but he's one of the biggest hearted people I've known. And I truly love that guy a lot. All those guys, the Porcaro family to me growing up, and Joe and them was, they were such inspirations. And then David Paich, whose father, Marty Paich, was, one of the big composers, television, film composers, amazing guy. And so being around that music and my dad with all that, those were such incredible times. Emil Richards was a big part of that. You being probably knowing about percussionists and stuff. That was an incredible time of music during those periods of time. Amazing. Yeah.
I've heard so many good things about Toto. And during this time, 1985, things were culminating to 1986 when David Gilmour and their time apparel, Roger Waters is leaving the band. It's like, hey, Scott, I want you to play on this one track, The Dogs of War.
Right.
How was that the experience? Did you meet him beforehand, David Gilmour? How did he find out about you?
Well, what happened was I was playing with Supertramp, and Dave was doing a playing on the album. He was guesting on the Supertramp record.
That's right.
So I was in the studio. We were all in the studio, and that night, just down the street in Woodland Hills, where Rick Davies lived, he had a studio at his house, beautiful pad there. Just down the block, there was a club called Josephina's that I used to play with my band. I had a band called the Hang Dynasty, which was made up of, Jeff Baxter from the Doobie Brothers, and I can't remember, Leland Sklar, the bass player, Lee. Gosh, I can't remember who else was there, but a bunch of us were playing that night. And I said, hey, after the session, why don't you come down? We're just playing down the street, just down the bottom of the hill. Come on, hang out after. So Gilmore came down and hung out and stuff with us, and we had a great time. And then the next weekend, I invited him. I said, I'm doing this event called The First Dance that I was putting on at Guitar Center. It was a thing. I was inventing a whole thing called visual sound, where I was using zooming MIDI-based tripods with zooming microphones that I developed to create the experience, so that when the mic zoomed in on the player, you could actually feel the presence come up in the mix and kind of make you feel like you were there. So I was experimenting, and I did this thing with a 50-piece band at Guitar Center, and I invited Dave down. Well, it just happened to be that Jeff was down the road playing on the Pink Floyd record. And Jeff said, hey, Dave, I got to go to Scott's thing. I'm playing on that. And he said, oh, I'll come with you. So he came with Jeff that night to my show, where I had the whole thing, and we did our show and everything, and I hung out with Dave again a little bit. And then next day or 2 days later, I get a call from Dave, and it's an English guy. And he says, oh, Scott, we're doing this thing. Would you come put a solo on this record? So I went in to do the solo on the record. We get there, and this is when we were using tape, right? We were using 24-track tape, right? So the whole thing was filled up, and they said, well, here's where we want you to put the solo on. And I said, okay, fine. And they said, but Dave, we don't have any tracks open. We have to delete these saxophone tracks. And they had all my heroes that already put a solo on the record. Tom Scott, I think they said Dave Sanborn. I mean, I can't believe all these people. They said, well, we have to erase these. And I'm like, they're going to erase these guys, my heroes. So they erased them. And I said, give me a shot. Let me just throw down top to bottom. Don't say anything. Let me just throw some stuff down. So I threw some things on, and they loved the solo. It became out. So then a couple days later, I got a call from Dave saying, we're going out on this big tour. Do you want to come and join the band? And to be truthful, I knew nothing about Pink Floyd. When I did the session, I didn't really know who they were, really, to be honest, other than I'd heard them. I remember a song, Have a Cigar or something, because I was an R&B rock and roll guy. I was an R&B blues. I was on, the Stevie Wonder and, Junior Walker and all those kind of guys. I never really paid any attention to that classic English rock. So I told Dave, I said, Dave, let me think about it. Let me think about this, right? So, because I was working on that project that he came to see, and I shot that thing. It was all video. I was editing it. It was my own project. So I called some friends of mine. I said, hey, buddy, man, I got this call from Dave Gilmore. He's a guitar player in a band called Pink Floyd. The guy goes, what are you calling? I said, yeah, they asked me to come join the band. He said, are you kidding me? Dude, you got to take that gig. Are you crazy? I said, well, what do you mean? So a couple of my friends said, you have to do that gig. So that night I went to Tower Records, which was open 24/7, about 2:00 in the morning, went and bought some records, came back and listened to them. And then I said, okay, next thing I did, I called them. I said, let's go, because we're going to go away for 2 years. So when somebody says, hey, you're going to leave your home for 2 years, you got to really think about it. And listen, I'm so happy I did that. That was the greatest thing I'd ever. I'm so thankful I didn't turn that down at the time. And now I am, without a doubt, the biggest Pink Floyd fan on the planet. Dave Gilmore is my guru. He is the master of melody. He has completely changed the way I think when I play, because everything Dave does is you can remember the melodies. He's not real flashy, playing all this. He plays things that you can memorize, you can hear and listen to. Just look at the songs, Comfortably Numb. You hear Comfortably Numb without the guitar solo, it feels like somebody left the words out, right? There's just certain things. So Dave really taught me the master of melody. So I completely changed my playing. And, being able to be on the bus and the planes and all the things that we did and talk music with him. And he's an incredible musician, really one of a kind. And I'm very, very thankful and blessed to have been touched by him and that band. I mean, it's incredible brand worldwide, right? It's just, and it never stops. And you can see it, even us doing our Pink Floyd shows, 40 sold out shows, and kids are coming, parents are bringing their kids. It's just one of those brands. And music, you know, you add it up. It's like, you know, the Beatles, the Stones, the Who, Zeppelin, Floyd, and then it starts getting a little thinner as you start going down the line. But it's, you know, they're one of the top 10 bands in history. So to have my little piece, my little mark on that is really, it's very humbling, and I'm so thankful. I can't tell you. Awesome.
You're right. All the music. I was thinking about it today. I asked my friend, do you think Pink Floyd would have been as successful with Syd Barrett as the front man of that group? And we spoke for about 5 minutes. I think that everything happens for a reason. First off, the answer is indefinite because we could never figure that out.
You never know.
But one thing that we do agree with David Gilmour fronting the ship, we talked about feel. There's feel. You immerse yourself into the music. You hear it, and sometimes you get stuck between the notes, and you wander off. And I can't even believe that I'm saying this, but if I was a musician in that Pink Floyd experience with all the visuals, I'd probably get so lost in the visuals and the music. And it must be quite the experience for you to be up there and be taking it all in, isn't it?
Oh, I mean, yeah, and especially, you know, we get to put our own little spin on it because we don't try to make it exactly like the records. I mean, we do it close because we want to do that. But yeah, I mean, what it really is to me, it's really about the players, the chemistry of the people. And when you marry the guys that we put together playing this timeless classic music that all of us love to death, I mean, it's just incredible. It is really a thrill. And I've played those tunes now so much, but I still love to play them. I mean, they're still fun. They're so musical about what they do. And, you know, it's so fascinating. The reason, funny story is how I got started with the whole Pink Floyd thing and doing this was Norwood Fisher called me. He was doing a residency here in town. And this is how I met Steven at a place called The Mint. And each month they were doing a classic album, top to bottom. So we did a B.B. King album and a few other albums. And he called me and said, "We're doing Wish You Were Here. Would you come play with us and do that record?" I said, yeah. And when I got there, it was Perkins was playing drums. That was the first time I met Perkins, other than knew of him. And so that's where we played that night. But what was so fascinating is everybody thinks Pink Floyd is easy because it's, you know, E minor chords. There's not any like 13 plus 11 chords or any kind of flashy, jazz 2-5-1 3-6-2-5 chords at all. It's all very simple, but it's complex because the form is so unique. It's not built in necessarily like, you know, most music's like A, B, A section, you know, 8 bars, you know, 4-bar bridge, whatever. It breaks all those things. And all those guys said, oh my God, trying to learn all this music was complex because of, you know, how long those phrases sometimes go before the chord changes happen. How do I remember them unless I know them a lot? So that's how I met Perkins. That's how I got into, you know, with them. And that night I realized that I was talking with a guy, David Moss, who I do this talk show thing with also. He started telling me about jazz as dead, which is guys taking the dead music and playing it with jazz, and they're killing it because they're rearranging the classics, something that people knew, and doing it in a unique way. And I'd already been thinking about doing something with Floyd and the stuff in some interesting ways. So after that night is when I brought the idea of this Floyd show into the Think Experience thing. And that was sort of the start of that whole thing.
Incredible ideas. Your mind is probably always racing with the next thing, you know, immersing yourself. It seems like with the coffee that you drink, it just keeps things racing in your head, just like me. I always look for another coffee cola, whatever I have to do. I just love coffee. We have a question.
Go ahead. Just real quick. What's actually interesting is it's actually the opposite. My mind stops. I've taken a path. I've taken a heavy spiritual path years ago, and realize that all the problems are based on thoughts that you identify in your head, because people don't realize the only thing that's real is you and me talking right now.
That's true.
2 minutes ago is an illusion. 2 minutes from now is an illusion. And that's the way it is. There's only one moment in time. There's only one. It's always the same moment. And time is an illusion. So once you start to grasp those things, and I realize when I play my best and when I do my best creative work is when I stop thinking. That's where all it comes up. So people say your mind's racing. It used to race like crazy. You'd be like a hamster on a wheel and you're thinking. Now I go to the other place. I go to stillness. I go to still, complete. I can actually stop thinking now. It took me 20 years to know what that is, to stop thought. And now that's where I do all my best work, is I go the opposite. I get rid of all the thinking, and that's where the best ideas, they just come from the universe. I can't explain it. It's where it is. It's like playing. That's why I play. People say, what is it about playing? I play because it gets me closer to God or the source or consciousness or whatever you want to call it. Unfortunately, when you use the word God, it creates an image and you miss it. It has nothing to do with that. But it's really the opposite. It's learning to be still and be quiet. And that's where the real knowledge comes from.
So kind of more gravitating those ideas towards you by just not just being calm and it's not thinking, just letting it happen. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's it. Yes, it is. It's letting it happen, but it is actually, again, it took me a long time because all the teachings through all the great, the great avatars from Jesus, Zoroaster, Buddha, you go on and on and on, all the great teachers, spiritual teachers through the years, they always talk about this thing of knowing. It's not understanding, because once you start to understand, you missed it. The minute you think about it, you miss it. And so what is that? So the puzzle is how do I know? It's about awareness. They always say it's about being really aware. When you're present, you're aware. But the question is, how do I know I'm aware that I'm aware? That's the puzzle. How do I know when I'm aware? Because your mind will say, I'm aware now. Well, no, you can't be aware, because the only way you can be aware is when you stop thinking. And that happens in disasters. Something goes wrong and you're forced into something. You're not thinking about your email. You're not thinking of this. It gives you a glimpse of what the present moment is like and how things take over. And you just basically start to deal with stuff. So the goal in life for me, there's only one thing everybody on this planet is here for, and there's nothing else. One job we all have, and that is to help consciousness unfold, the universe unfold. Because think about it. You blink, you're 50, you blink, you're on your deathbed. How did all this time goes by? I look back right now and I'm going, 50 some years went by. I mean, how did that happen? It seems like it was yesterday when I was doing those things. Now I go, now I know what time is an illusion. It's something that we create in our head. We create time. There is no such time, as just a thing we make up. And so once you start to grasp these things and you realize that the stillness, and that's where the real creative juices come from. It's like not when you're over trying to think everything. You're like, oh my God, you're running around. And all the intellectual people say, you got to think about this. You got to really put on it. It's really when you stop all that is when it really happens. And for me, what really I realized on the music side was this. I was used to, when I play my gigs for years, I'd come home from my gigs in my car and I'd take my cassettes, because I tape every gig, and I put it in the car on my drive home to listen to how I played, so I could see if my time was good, if I flat, sharp, the lines I played, just hear I played, critique myself, right? Do it all the time. And about 5 times over a 10-year period of time of my career playing years, I heard myself back and I go, that ain't me. Where did that even come from? I have no idea how I played like this. I played stuff that was just miraculously, and I could never figure out what happened. I'd be chasing that forever. Then when I started getting into more, taking an inward journey and really focusing on meditation and things, I finally realized what happened. At those moments, thought dropped. It went away, and I just played from a different place, and it's hard to say. So from that point through my meditations, I started realizing. So now when I go to play, because it's taken me, again, almost 15, 18 years to finally get to the point where I can stop thought. I mean, I can, like that. And everybody can. And it's so simple, we all miss it. That's why we all dance around it. It's just too hard to grasp. But once you taste it, you go, that's it. And once you do that, your life changes, because when you're aware, you realize that you're not caught up in your thoughts. So here's one for everybody to try. All right. Just a little thing, an exercise to start. It's called waking up, right? This is what they talk about. The great thing of what's called enlightenment is like the idea of knowing who you are. What do you stand? What is it? Who am I? Where did I come from? Right. And that's the golden carrot that's out there that everybody chases. Right. And so you start to realize that once you stop that thought, you're really connecting with reality, because you're not labeling anything. And once that happens, you feel this massive shift and you realize, wait a minute, am I the watcher or am I the thinker? The thinking part is what gets in the way. We put too much emphasis on the thoughts and stuff. So the exercise, stop, ask yourself where I am, put all your attention in the room, and then ask this question. What am I feeling right now? Am I feeling any anxiety, tension, or fear? If I'm feeling any of those, that's a pointer that's saying you're identified with a thought, because I'm sitting here right now. In reality, everything's fine. I'm not suffering about, oh my God, what's going to happen if this is going to happen? What do I do now? My car got hit last week. It sucks. I can't believe it. It's all this stuff. And so you're identifying with a thought. Goal of life is one thing. Resist nothing. Surrender to what is, because anything else is futile. That's why when I lost all our gigs, it didn't even faze me. I mean, all our revenue, everything went away. I swear to God, I didn't even think about it. I just got up that morning and said, because this is what I'm doing right now, got to shift my goal, because those were illusions. I have no idea what would have happened to me if I went on those trips. I don't know if those things, anything, because it was all future mental noise that was just an illusion. So when we stop worrying about the future and we stop worrying about the past, the only thing that matters is the ride. We're having a good ride. Am I having a good ride right now? So every step I take, I've got to a point where I almost feel like I'm in a reality bubble, because I know the only thing that's real is what I'm looking at and where I am right at that moment. And as soon as I start to think about stuff, I'm watching my thoughts all the time. I'm seeing myself, oh, I'm going down here. Don't do that. That's stupid, right? You start becoming the watcher. So the goal is to switch your point of view from being the thinker to the watcher. And then you ask yourself, who's watching? Is there two of me? That's when it gets interesting. Life starts to become more real. And then you start to have the realization, I'm really not this thinker at all. I'm looking at myself, at everything I see. That's what I am. This is who I am. This is a meat suit that's being driven by this thing that's going through me, right? So that's why I don't believe you die. The meat suit may go away, but so what? I'm actually, as strange as this may sound, I've gotten to a point where I'm actually fascinated now with what it's going to be like on the other side. And I have zero fear of it anymore. If I go, fine, because I don't think you die. You just the meat suit goes away. And this thing that you're looking through your eyes is always the same, and it never stops.
So you think it just continues, just no physical being?
Yeah. It's obvious, because when I stop thought, I merge with the source, and I go, oh, that's what I am. That's real, right? The other thing is thoughts. It's mental noise that you're identifying with is what causes all the freaking problem. All the suffering comes, and people don't realize suffering is there for a reason. It's a gift. Because suffering gets to a point where you go, I can't take it anymore. And then you start looking inward and you start thinking, man, maybe I need to get some help books. And I start forcing myself to getting a little bit more and learning about how to control all this. And all the suffering is all about thoughts. Unless you're getting chased by a tiger or a lion or something's happening and you're just sitting there. Because I see people suffer and they'll be sitting there. You can just see their wheels are turning and they're just suffering. And they're sitting there with a cup of coffee in a perfectly safe place. That's all that's real. Grasping that and knowing that as true. It's easy to understand, but just know this pointer. The minute you understand it, you've missed it. That's the trick right there. I understand. No, well, then you missed it. As soon as you say you understand it, you missed it. You can't understand it. You can only know it. And it's a knowing is different, because there's nobody that could change there's not a person on the planet that could tell me that what's real, what it is right now, and try to change my point of view. There's just nobody, because now I know. It's like the mind is this, the egoic mind, the insanity of the mind. I mean, that's the problem we're having on the planet right now. It's nothing else other than the insanity of the egoic mind. These people running around, because remember this, here's a fact. The mind is incapable of knowing truth from falsehood. It's impossible. And I can prove it. If it was true, if my mind was capable of knowing what is true, what is false, what is right, what is wrong, there'd be no war. There'd be no war because they get convinced my mind knows this is what it is, right? So that thing is insane. And first thing is you got to see how insane you are. Because once I started being able to watch myself, I'm going, I'm a nut. I'm a completely insane. I cannot believe how insane I am. That's what the first observations. And when you see that, you look at everybody else. That's why in the Bible, it's funny because I've read all the books, all the different ones, right? Because I'm so fascinated with the subject. In the Bible, it says, forgive for they know not what they do. And that is a profound statement because that's saying you can't, anybody, no matter how horrific, how horrible it is, they don't even know what they're doing. They have no idea. They're driven by either like this guy that just killed this guy, the satanic freaking insanity that's out there in his head. He can't do any better. We don't get up every day saying, gee, I'm going to do the worst I can today. You get up and do the best you can. I don't care what it is. So we have to live in a state of total forgiveness all the time. We have to forgive because they not know what they do. We all do. We're insane. And until people start to take this inward journey, which is why I think what's going on right now, there's a lot of contemplating going on with all the wackiness that's happening. I think there's awakening that's starting to happen to people because they're sitting in their homes for 3 months by themselves and they're having time to like really contemplate. Some people it's making them mad and other people are like, wow, I'm going to start reading those books and start getting into it. So I think there's a major awakening that's also happening with also at the same time, I think there's an insane satanic thing going on right now that is just crazy. And I don't mean satanic in the thing. I'm talking about the metaphorically, just the demonic kinds of things that drive people. And again, it's where we are as humanity. People think, we've got to save the world. I'm going, the world's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
There's nothing to say. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to. Humanity, that's a different subject, whether we're going to be here. And then I ask the question, do we even need to be here? Why is that important? This thing is beautiful. I'm looking at the trees, it's growing, everything's happening, it's flourishing. The universe is continuing. And, does it matter? And I also believe that humans are designing themselves out right now and the machine is taking over because this phone, it's not implanted in me yet, but I'm carrying it everywhere and it's everything I'm doing, right? And those algorithms are feeding you information, which you're programming your mind, right? That's the wild part. So the machines are now starting to get the point to take over. And AI, all the artificial intelligence, they're saying, oh, it'll never be as smart as a human. Okay. It'll be like, it's already smarter than humans because you got the entire database of the entire world right now at your fingertips to be smarter than any human, but it won't have emotion. Well, wait a minute. Quantum mechanics now has just changed quantum computing because it used to be binary, on or off, right? Yes or no. Now we have yes, no, and maybe with quantum. And when you look at quantum entanglement, and if you really look into quantum physics and stuff, that's all now pointing to what the mystics have been saying for years. It's starting to prove. Just read a whole article that they now have got theories of proving that the present moment and the future happen exactly at the same space, right? And that's being proven in science, which is fascinating. So science is now, which has always been the thing that's against all this hocus pocus of spiritualism and all this stuff, was just really like for people that are goofy, right? They're like little flower people. Well, it's getting past that point. We're now learning all that stuff in the quantum world. Fascinating stuff. I love it.
My head hurts a lot when I talk about it. I heard Sean Carroll talk about it over on Joe Rogan's show, the different dimensions and parallel universe. It's very hard to comprehend because I have an uncle who I'm greatly inspired by. He told me all this stuff probably like 4 or 5 years ago. There's a I don't know what you would call it, but like a little group of people who get together here. They study quantum mechanics, quantum physics. They deal with teleportation and whatever. And he told me a lot of this stuff. And it's incredible because that means if there's maybe 50 or 1,000 different versions of me. There's something that we don't fully understand about our life here in this dimension or whatever this is. We're perfect. We're perfect here. Our bodies work perfectly. We're in a great environment. Everything's made for us. It seems like our body is able to process almost anything. It's so puzzling. And one day I hope we'll be able to maybe travel to different dimensions and see your parallel self. Or the one thing they really got me is that the deja vu is because the person in the parallel dimension that it's going in reverse has experienced that already. So you already have experienced that, just not in this world, it just blew me away. And you know what? My head really hurts when I talk about this stuff because it doesn't make sense. You have to be able to comprehend it in little pieces, right?
Yeah, well, what's happening again, science, because of the technology we have, we can now start measuring it. At the quantum level, we're just vibration. We're just a note. It's like this glass table here is not solid, which is fascinating, right? There's so many things. And now we've got quantum entanglement where they got like a proton here in Los Angeles moves and it moves one in Florida. Like they're talking to each other. So now they're talking about transporting now. All these things are starting to become, which were science fiction, are kind of go, wow, now we're seeing there's some possible things that can happen, because at the end of the day, we're just a vibration of a note. That's why music is so important, why it's so universal, is because we are a note at the bottom, at the deepest level. So it's just fascinating for me because I study it because I'm so interested in how the spiritual world and these worlds are coming together to prove things that are happening right now. And so, it's an interesting time, no question, to be alive.
Oh, absolutely. It's a conversation we could have for many, many years, and we will still
Yes.
not know anything. And we have to close this because I feel that if we keep going, my wife's going to be calling me for dinner, and it's going to be a big mess, and people are going to be calling me for some more voiceovers. So, in closing, the question I ask every guest on this show, Scott,
Okay.
how do you take your coffee?
Oh, I'm a big Nespresso fan. I have a Nespresso machine. I
Yeah.
don't know if you had those. Great coffee in those things, because you can get all those different flavors and all that stuff. And so I'm a non-fat latte guy, but now I've been I've been using oat milk, believe it or not, because I just don't want the dairy anymore because I got some inflation and stuff. So I'm mostly no sugar. No sugar. I'll have it either black or with a latte with oat milk. That's my whole thing.
Well, thanks, Scott, for coming on and meet me for coffee. You can check out Scott on his Twitter, or you can check out, what's that website for the Think Experience?
It's so all my handles is I am Scott Page, and you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, all that. I am Scott Page, and Think Experience. So thinkexp.co. thinkexp.co is our website, but best is just think Experience, think exp, Google search. You'll find articles, you'll see videos of our dome shows. That's the easiest way. Just use Google think exp, and you'll find access to everything we do.
Well, thanks, Scott. Have a good night,
buddy. That was a fun time. Thank you for having me on your show. Very much appreciated.
Anytime.